What if everything you believed about your missing child was a lie? What if the person you trusted most, the one who grieved with you, cried beside you, blamed the world with you, was the very one who stole him? 8 years after Ben Holloway vanished from a baseball field, a moldy lunchbox, a crumpled note, a gas station video, and now, a stranger claiming to know the boy he became.
His name isn't Ben anymore. He lives in another state. He doesn't remember his real dad. And the woman who raised him isn't his mother. How do you bring a child back when he no longer knows he was taken?
You need to hear what happened next. Like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you watch till the end, because the truth that finally comes out is nothing like what anyone expected. Michael stood in the hallway outside Rachel's condo, fist raised, knuckles white. For a moment he hesitated. His heart thundered against his ribs like a war drum. He could still turn around, walk away, pretend he hadn't seen the footage, pretend the note didn't exist, pretend that Rachel, the woman he once loved, wasn't a possible traitor. But he knocked. Rachel opened the door with a look that immediately twisted into suspicion. "Michael?" she said, arms crossed over her cardigan. "It's been a while. I need to talk to you," he said. His voice was hoarse. Inside, she raised an eyebrow but stepped aside. The moment he entered, the tension thickened. Framed family photos on the wall, a coffee table with old parenting magazines. Her home looked untouched by grief. Too neat, too sterile. He didn't sit. He pulled the printed photo from his jacket pocket and dropped it on her glass table. Rachel blinked, slowly picked it up. "What's this?" "Gas station footage," Michael said. "June 12, 2017. The day Ben disappeared." Rachel squinted at the image. Her face paled just slightly. "I don't see anything." "That's Ben getting out of the van," Michael said, pointing to the blurry boy in the image. "And that pumping gas is you." She stared at him, then let out a brittle laugh. "Michael, come on. I'm not joking. This is grainy, Michael. You think this is proof of something? That's not Ben. That's not even me. You're clinging to ghosts." "I have a note," he said, "from Ben, in his handwriting, from the lunchbox he carried that day. He says you weren't to be trusted." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Are you hearing yourself? You're delusional. You need help. You've never processed what happened. Now you're making up conspiracies to make the pain manageable." Michael stepped closer. "If you had nothing to do with it, say it." "I didn't." "Then why were you at that gas station?" She didn't answer. Her jaw tightened. Michael noticed her hands were shaking. He didn't push further. He knew when a door was shut, but he had another move. That night, Michael posted the photo online. Alongside it, he wrote, "My son, Ben Holloway, vanished June 12, 2017. I believe he's alive. If you recognize this boy, or the woman in the photo, please contact me." He didn't expect much, but 3 days later, his inbox lit up. The message came from a girl named Avery Cross in Davenport, Iowa. "Hi, Mr. Holloway. I don't know how to say this, but I think your son is my adoptive brother. We call him Elijah, but I've always known something was off." Michael froze. He clicked her profile. A teenage girl, maybe 17. Photos of her with friends. School. A dog named Biscuit. It all seemed real. He read the rest of the message. "He came to live with us 8 years ago. He was 12, but he didn't know his own birthday. My parents said the agency said his records were lost. He didn't talk much for the first year, but over time he warmed up. He's funny, smart, loves comic books, especially Spider-Man." Michael's lungs stalled. "Spider-Man. He has a mole above his left eyebrow," Avery continued, "like the boy in your pictures. And sometimes at night I hear him talk in his sleep. Just last week, I heard him whisper the name Michael. I thought it was a dream." Michael stared at her words, trembling. He messaged her back instantly. "Can you send me a photo of him?" 15 minutes later, His phone pinged. Michael opened the image. A tall, lanky teen stood beside a tree in a backyard. He wore a hoodie, but his face was clear. His eyes were piercing blue, hair shaggy but familiar. He was smiling, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. It was Ben. Michael knew it like he knew his own face. Same chin, same nose, same mole above the eyebrow. He stared at the photo for a long time, tears burning his eyes. Avery's follow-up message popped up. I haven't told my parents. They don't know I'm messaging you. They said Elijah was abandoned. But something's not right. If this is really your son, what happens next? Michael didn't know how to answer. He called her instead. Avery picked up on the first ring. Her voice was cautious, but kind. She confirmed everything again. The boy arrived through a private adoption agency. The documents were vague. There were no photos of him before age 12. No school records, no medical history, nothing. They said he was homeschooled by a sick grandmother before she died, she said. But even at 13, Elijah couldn't do long division. Michael listened, heart pounding. Avery lowered her voice. There's more. Michael's grip on the phone tightened. Sometimes, she said, he talks in his sleep, not just names, whole sentences. About a baseball game, about someone grabbing him, about a red barn. And once, she paused. Once he said, I didn't mean to leave Dad. I was scared. Michael felt his knees go weak. He sat down on the floor of his hallway, phone pressed to his ear, silent tears falling. What do I do? She whispered. Michael swallowed hard. Just don't say anything yet. Not to him, not to your parents. Can you meet me somewhere safe? She hesitated. There's a park nearby, big dog walking area. He goes there every Saturday morning by himself. Michael wrote it down. Can you get me close without scaring him? He asked. I think so. There was silence on the line. Then, Mr. Holloway? Yeah. I really hope he's your son. But if he is, that means someone stole him. Michael nodded slowly. I know. They agreed on a plan. Saturday, 9 a.m. Avery would take their family dog to the park and make sure Elijah came too. She'd walk ahead and leave a trail. Michael would follow. He ended the call, heart hammering. Ben. Alive. Not lost. Not dead. Adopted under a new name. Hidden in plain sight. The only thing he didn't know was why. And more terrifying, who had orchestrated it. Was Rachel involved in something bigger than he imagined? Was this just a private adoption? Or something darker? Michael packed a bag. He booked a flight. He printed every photo of Ben he ever had. But deep down, he wasn't sure what scared him more. Finding his son, or what Ben might say when he did. Saturday arrived. Michael stood behind the tree line at the park, eyes fixed on the boy tossing a stick to the dog. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. Ben! The boy turned and screamed. The sky was still dark when Michael crossed into Iowa. He hadn't slept. The road signs blurred. His fingers clenched the steering wheel hard enough to make the skin raw. Every mile that brought him closer to Davenport seemed to slow time. The truth waited at the end of this road. And for once, he was ready. He had rehearsed what he'd say, 1,000 versions. But when the white farmhouse came into view, modest, old but well-kept, his mind went silent. The mailbox red cross in peeling black letters. A tall oak tree shadowed the gravel drive. Wind chimes tinkled faintly on the porch. He parked across the road, his rental car tucked behind a row of hedges. And then he saw him. A boy stepped onto the porch. Tall, lanky, that same uneven gait Ben always had. He wore a hoodie pulled halfway up. His left hand dangled by his side, and from a carabiner on his belt loop hung a telescope keychain. Michael's heart cracked open. Ben. He would have known him anywhere. The curve of his jaw, the way he rubbed his wrist when he was nervous. Even from across the street, the resemblance was unmistakable. 8 years older, yes, but his son. Undeniably, Michael's fingers twitched toward the car door handle. But before he could open it, Red and blue lights flashed behind him. A police cruiser pulled into the driveway, kicking up gravel. The boy turned toward it, shielding his eyes. Michael ducked down instinctively, watching from behind the dashboard. His pulse pounded. Has someone reported him? Then the back door of the cruiser opened, and Rachel stepped out, in handcuffs. Her hair was longer, dyed a muted brown, but the face was unmistakable. Eyes hardened, lips pursed in fury and defeat. She didn't fight the officers. She didn't cry. She just looked caught. Michael's breath caught in his throat. Avery had done it. She had tipped off the authorities. Later, at the station, Michael would learn the full story. Came in fragments like puzzle pieces spilled from a box. Rachel had begun planning the abduction nearly a year before Ben vanished. She had always believed Michael was emotionally unstable. In her version of events, she wasn't kidnapping her son. She was rescuing him. She convinced herself she was saving him, the lead detective said. She had therapy records, fake psychologist letters, even forged court filings. None of them are real. She created an alternate narrative. She joined underground parenting forums, reading for hours on how to vanish with a child and create a new identity. She found a private adoption facilitator willing to take money and ask no questions. Using aliases, fake records, and a series of temporary addresses, she relocated from one state to another, finally landing in Iowa as Rachel Carter. She told Ben they were starting over, that his father was gone, that remembering the past would only bring danger. But Ben never forgot. Not entirely. When they left the old house in 2017, Ben had snuck back inside just once. Rachel was outside, packing the car. He ran into the crawl space and shoved a note into the lunchbox Michael had given him that morning. I never made it to the game. I think someone switched me. I'm alive but not safe. Don't trust Rachel. He didn't know when or if it would be found. But he had hope. DNA matched, the officer told Michael 2 weeks later. Elijah is Ben Holloway, no doubt. Michael sat in the waiting room of the sheriff's office when they told him. He was holding the telescope keychain in his palm. A rusted toy now, but weighty with meaning. His hands shook. Can I see him? He asked. They hesitated, then nodded. The reunion didn't happen in a dramatic burst of hugs and tears. It was quiet. The sheriff's office let them sit in a neutral interview room. No bars, no glass, just a table, 2 chairs, and an officer watching silently from the door. When Ben walked in, he didn't speak at first. Neither did Michael. They just looked. Ben's eyes were rimmed with red. He was still clutching the comic book he'd brought with him. Amazing Spider-Man number 121. Michael smiled through tears. That had been Ben's favorite growing up. Hey, Michael said softly. Ben's voice cracked. Hey, a long pause. Michael slid the keychain across the table. I kept this for you, he said. Well, it kept itself for you. You left it behind. Ben picked it up, turned it in his fingers, smiled. I remember, he whispered. I didn't think you'd ever find it. Michael's voice broke. I didn't think I'd ever find you. Another long pause. Then Ben said something that shattered the silence. She told me you died. Michael swallowed hard. I didn't. I know that now. But for a long time I wasn't sure what to believe. I thought I was crazy for remembering things that didn't fit. You weren't crazy, Michael said. You were surviving. Ben looked up. And in that moment, Michael saw something in his son's eyes he hadn't seen since he was 10 years old. Recognition. A part of him had never let go. Rachel was formally charged with kidnapping, custodial interference, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Her trial was set for the following spring. Ben was placed into temporary custody with the state until the courts finalized Michael's full parental restoration. But they saw each other every week. Therapy followed, the kind of healing work that dug up buried years and painful truths. Ben was no longer 10. He had scars Michael would never fully understand. But they had time now, real time. On the porch of the home Michael had moved into temporarily, Ben asked one day, "Why do you think she did it? Why would someone go that far?" Michael didn't have a clear answer. Because fear makes people do strange things, he said. Even terrible ones. And maybe she thought she was protecting you. Ben shook his head. But she wasn't. No, Michael said. She wasn't. They sat in silence. Then Ben pulled something from his hoodie pocket. It was the lunchbox, the one Michael had thought lost forever. Found it in the police evidence box, Ben said. Guess it followed me, too. Michael laughed, the sound catching in his throat. I think it waited, Ben said, till the right time. But not everything had been explained. Not the 9 missing minutes. Not the shadowy man seen on old footage near the stadium. And certainly not the words Ben muttered in therapy the following week. I think she wasn't working alone. The moment Ben was placed in Michael's care wasn't marked by hugs and happy tears. It wasn't anything like the movies. It was awkward, silent, tense. He stood in the doorway of Michael's new rental home, a modest 2-bedroom with creaking floorboards and mismatched kitchen tiles, and didn't step inside right away. Just stood there, backpack slung over one shoulder, Spider-Man lunchbox clutched tight in his hand. Michael didn't rush him. He just opened the door wider and stepped aside. You don't have to talk, he said gently. Just be home. Ben nodded once and walked past him without a word. Trust, Michael quickly learned, was a currency you couldn't buy back. Not with DNA, not with truth, not even with love. Ben had spent nearly 8 years living a lie. A new name, a new school, a new family who insisted the past was a trauma dream and not to be mentioned again. He'd been gaslit, redirected, emotionally manipulated. And now, here he was, back with the father he was told had died. Back in a world that moved on without him. Everything was unfamiliar, even Michael. Michael tried not to take it personally, but the silence hurt. Some nights, Michael could hear Ben talking in his sleep. Not full words, but fragments. No, Mom, please. I remember. I didn't want to go. Other nights, he'd find Ben on the porch in the dark, sitting cross-legged with the lunchbox beside him and a comic book open in his lap. They started slow. No therapy yet. No questions. Just movie nights. Michael borrowed an old projector from a coworker and set it up in the backyard. They watched The Iron Giant first, then Back to the Future, then Spider-Man, of course. Ben didn't laugh, but he didn't leave either. The next morning, a note appeared inside the lunchbox. It was simple. The movie was okay. Thanks for the popcorn. Michael read it 5 times before placing it back where he found it, under the bed inside the lunchbox right next to the crumbling telescope keychain. The following week, they played catch in the backyard. It started with Ben standing stiffly, glove too small now but still trying. Michael tossed him an underhand throw. Ben missed. Then another, and another. Frustration flared in his eyes, but he didn't quit. By the end of the afternoon, Ben caught 3 in a row. When Michael headed inside to make sandwiches, he came back out to find Ben still standing in the grass. Not throwing, just holding the ball in both hands, staring down at it. Later, Michael found a new note. The ball felt right. I don't know why, but it did. Therapy came next. Avery had recommended someone, Dr. Laurel Bishop, a trauma therapist who specialized in long-term child abductions and memory reintegration. Ben refused at first. I don't need someone else digging through my head, he said sharply. Michael didn't argue. He just handed Ben the business card. It's your call, he said. Whenever you're ready. 2 days later, Ben asked to go. He didn't talk much the first few sessions, but slowly the memories started to leak through the cracks. The switch happened fast, he told her. 1 minute I was at the game, next I was in a car. Not with Mom, someone else at first. I think she met up with us later. Do you remember what the other person looked like? Dr. Bishop asked. Ben shook his head. Just a smell. Cigarettes and pine. Rachel never smoked. Michael wrote that detail down. Over time, other fragments returned. A hotel room with floral curtains. A man with a tattoo of a snake wrapped around a dagger. And a voice in the back seat of a car saying, "He won't remember. They never do." Michael began his own investigation quietly. While Ben was at therapy or school, Michael pulled police reports, requested old surveillance footage, searched forums dedicated to missing children. The name Elijah Cross brought up nothing useful. But the snake and dagger tattoo? That was something. In an archived law enforcement bulletin from 2018, Michael found a small time trafficker arrested in Missouri. The photo wasn't clear, but on the man's forearm, there it was. A snake wrapped around a dagger. He printed it out and placed it in a folder. Something told him they hadn't uncovered everything yet. Meanwhile, Ben's notes continued. Every week, he added one to the lunchbox. Sometimes long, sometimes cryptic, but always honest. I dreamt about the switch again. I think the guy with the snake tattoo called me someone else. Maybe Tyler. Rachel cried a lot back then. She said we were going somewhere safe. But it never felt safe. Today I saw a dad pick up his son from school. He looked like you. I thought that was weird. And then one Friday night in October, after their 5th movie night, and the first time Ben actually laughed. Michael opened the lunchbox and found a folded blue note. It read, "Thanks for not forgetting me." Michael sat on the edge of the bed and cried into his hands. Not loudly, not for long, just enough. Their world was still fragile. Their story is far from over. But that night, Michael left his own note in the box. I never could. And for the first time in years, he slept all the way through the night. But what Ben couldn't remember, someone else hadn't forgotten. And one town over, a man newly released from prison logged onto a dark web forum. He typed 3 words. The boy's alive. The man in the grainy surveillance footage hadn't aged well. Prison had carved deep lines across his face and thinned his hair. But the tattoo on his forearm, coiled snake wrapped around a dagger, was unmistakable. His name was Donnie Kirkland, career lowlife, connected to a child relocation ring broken up in 2018. He'd done 6 years for obstruction, then disappeared off the radar. Until now, until he logged onto a dark web forum used by ex-offenders. He typed just 3 words, "The boy's alive." The message pinged an alert on a federal watch list. Someone at a desk in Washington, D.C. flagged it. Within 24 hours, the Iowa Police Department received a confidential tip. Donnie was back in the area, and he might be looking for unfinished business. Michael didn't wait for someone to knock on his door. He packed a go-bag, alerted Avery, alerted Dr. Bishop. Ben was in school when he got the call. Michael parked across the street in his old Corolla and watched the building's entrance like a hawk. He had no proof Donnie was in town, but his gut, that fatherly 6th sense honed by years of guilt and grief, told him something was off. Sure enough, 10 minutes before the final bell rang, a dark pickup truck idled at the corner. Tinted windows, Missouri plates. Michael stepped out of his car and walked straight up to the driver's side. His hands trembled, but his voice didn't. "You here for someone?" he asked, calm as stone. The window lowered. Donnie's face emerged, pale, sunken. "Just sightseeing," he smirked. "Nice neighborhood." Michael didn't blink. "If you ever come near my son again, it won't be the police who find you first." Something in his voice must have landed. Donnie's smirk faltered. Moments later, the truck peeled off down the block. Police arrested Donnie 2 days later. He'd violated parole by crossing state lines and was carrying forged IDs in his glove box. During questioning, he admitted to driving Ben to the motel back in 2017. He was quiet, didn't cry much, Donnie said. "Did you know who he was?" the officer asked. Donnie hesitated. "I knew he wasn't Elijah Cross. That's what they called him. But I just drove. I didn't take him." "Who did?" He shrugged. "Some woman, paid cash, said the kid needed a reset." Back home, Ben was safe, but rattled. He'd overheard a voicemail about Donnie's arrest. That night, he approached Michael in the living room. Something he hadn't done unprompted since the reunion. "Was it him?" Ben asked. Michael looked up from his notes. "Yes." Ben nodded slowly. "I thought I heard his voice in a dream once. Felt like a memory." "You remembered right," Michael said quietly. Ben sat down beside him. No words for a while. just the sound of the wind outside and the ticking of a wall clock. Then Ben said something Michael never thought he'd hear. "I think I want to change my name back to Ben." Michael looked at him. "Are you sure?" Ben gave a small smile. "Yeah, Elijah feels like a chapter that's closed." Michael reached over and gently squeezed his shoulder. The paperwork didn't take long. The healing? That would take years. But this time, they weren't moving backward. Ben went back to school, made his first real friends since the return, and joined the junior baseball team. Michael stayed in Iowa. He renovated the house one room at a time, starting with Ben's. He framed one of Ben's lunchbox notes on the wall. "Thanks for not forgetting me." They still used the lunchbox, not for food but as a memory box. Each week, Ben dropped in a new note, drawings, quotes, sometimes a comic panel that made him laugh. One day, Michael opened it and found a single folded sheet. "I used to think my story ended the day I disappeared. But maybe it started the day you refused to stop looking." Ben is 17 now. He wants to study psychology and help other kids like him. Michael writes occasionally for a trauma recovery blog, advocating for families of missing children. Every post ends the same way. "Don't stop searching. Your voice might be the one that brings them home." If the story moved you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional, suspenseful stories inspired by true events. And tap the notification bell so you never miss a chapter that could change the way you see the world. Have you ever experienced a moment where your past came back unexpectedly and changed everything? We'd love to hear your story. Comment below.